This is the Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition. Good evening, I'm Sabrina Brown. Thank you for joining us. The Bahamas Association of Compliance Officers hosted its 9th annual meeting on Grand Bahama today. The Minister for Grand Bahama and the Minister of Financial Services addressed the evolving landscape of compliance and its significance to international standards. Shashina Roll reports.
They are considered the gatekeepers of the financial services industry, as compliance officers have the mammoth task of ensuring that international standards are met and maintained. During the 9th annual Northern Bahamas Conference, the Minister for Grand Bahama, the Honorable Dr. Michael Darville, explained how the global landscape has drastically changed as a result of new international policies post 9/11.
As a result of these changes, the role of compliance officers have been elevated and very much respected in the financial services sector. However, it is also becoming increasingly complicated as the compliance officer must keep an eye on new and old regulations, litigation trends, industry best practices, and international standards. Ladies and gentlemen, there's no question that the financial services sector play a vital role in supporting economic growth and employment in the Bahamas.
The Minister for the Financial Services sector was one of the presenters during the conference. The Honorable Ryan Pinder boasted that the officers in the Bahamas are renowned worldwide.
Institutions from all over the world call our compliance officers for advice. They're really fundamental to the integrity and the growth and the sustainability of the industry.
President of BACO, Shasta Trico Moxie, agrees. She says this country is the premier destination when it comes to well-trained compliance officers.
Don't let anybody fool you to say that we aren't the premier jurisdiction. We are. Thank you, Minister. Actually, ICA, as part of ICA, the Bahamas has more members than any jurisdiction.
Shashina Roll, ZNS Network News.
Value-added tax is one step closer to becoming law now that it has been passed in the House of Assembly. The Minister for Financial Services, while on Grand Bahama today, addressed the effects of VAT on Freeport. Shashina Roll has the details.
Members of the lower chamber voted Wednesday night with the overwhelming majority in support of the value-added tax bill. Now that this new form of taxation is one step closer to becoming law since passed in the House of Assembly, the question is, what does VAT mean to Freeport, which is under the Hawksbill Creek Agreement? The Minister for Financial Services, the Honorable Ryan Pinder, explains.
That won't be applied when licensee-to-licensee sales, which is unique. Given that we are under the Hawksbill Creek Agreement in Freeport. Outside of the scope of Freeport, it's going to be as is everywhere else in the country. There's just a little tweak with respect to Freeport. But, value-added tax, as I demonstrated today, it doesn't have to be as complex and confusing as some make it out to be. Yes, I can tell you as a tax lawyer, any kind of tax policy, whether it be value-added tax or income tax, whatever it might be, is complex, and it's difficult, and it's not easy, and it is intimidating.
The minister further explained that much activity in Freeport is export-based, adding that those institutions are outside the regime of VAT.
They will get a refund for all of the tax that they pay because they're export-related. It's important to note that value-added tax is a tax on local consumption. So if you are exporting, you're not performing local consumption, and therefore it's outside the scope. So you just got to remember, a simple way of saying it is value-added tax is a tax on local consumption.
With the economic downturn, some say now is not the time to implement value-added tax.
One would always say it is never a good time to create a new tax structure or to do tax reform. And particularly in the Bahamas, where there is a hesitancy towards change. Regardless of what it is, we're just very comfortable where we are. But the challenge is, as a government, that the fiscal situation of the country is becoming very challenged. And if we experience any more downgrades or the like, the pain will be much more than what it would be right now.
Initially, the government proposed a 15% rate structure on goods and services. However, that has since been changed. There will be a single VAT rate of 7.5% across the board. Pinder explains part of the reasoning for the reduction.
If there is any adverse consequence, especially to the poor, that there will be a government-sponsored social assistance program to assist with that. So yeah, I mean, it's never a great time because just tax is complicated and it's intimidating, as we said.
Pinder says he does not foresee any increase from the 7.5% in the future. Shashina Roll, ZNX Network News.
22 members of the lower chamber voted for the new tax system from the government side, and 8 voted against the bill, including all of the opposition members and Marco City member Gregory Moss.
VAT is efficient in the sense that it brings in a lot of revenue, but it's inequitable and unfair in the sense that it rapes the poor, the working class, and the middle class to get that revenue. People will also say, you know, we are where we are, we need revenue, what do you want us to do? Wait for the dollar to devalue and everyone suffers. That is a false paradigm because there's an alternative. The alternative is to tax people who have the money, to tax the rich, which takes us into the other kind of taxation, which is taxation on wealth. We've never done that. We have never taxed based on wealth. And there is a disproportionate amount of people. There's a disproportionate amount that's carrying the tax burden, meaning the poor, while a very few who own all the wealth in the country, or the bulk of it, sit around doing nothing to carry the burden of the people. And so that's why I opposed VAT.
Moss also believes that there will be a challenge as it relates to VAT in the city of Freeport.
On the one hand, we have a statute which says that VAT will be applied to goods and services. We even have provisions that expressly say that the VAT tax will apply to the city of Freeport. And we have provisions which go on to say that even where it should not have been applied, it must be paid, and then an application is made to have it reimbursed. And that all flies in the face of the Hawkesbury Creek Agreement, which says we shouldn't have these taxes. And so I think we're going to see legal battles on that.
A community walkabout in Abaco yesterday has resulted in 3 people being arrested and the closure of an unlicensed business. Reports say between the hours of 9:30 a.m. and 12 noon, a team of police officers, along with officers from the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, the Department of Immigration, Ministry of Works, and the Department of Environmental Health Services, conducted a walkabout in the Mud community in Marsh Harbor. A number of businesses were reportedly found in the area without proper business licenses or permits. 3 males of Haitian descent were taken into custody for breach of the Immigration Act. Also from the island of Abaco, a 56-year-old man was arrested for breach of the Fisheries Act. Reports say shortly after 3 p.m. yesterday, police in Grand Key arrested a male resident who had in his possession undersized crawfish. He's expected to be charged before the magistrate's court in Abaco. Well, a man is fortunate to be alive tonight following an early morning traffic mishap. Reports say the incident occurred shortly before 7 a.m. on Queens Highway, involving a white 2007 Chevy Monte Carlo that was traveling west on Queens Highway. The driver reportedly ran off the southern side of the road, lost control, collided into a curbstone, and overturned. The male passenger was ejected from the vehicle and received injuries about the body. He was transported to the Rand Memorial Hospital by ambulance and is detained in serious but stable condition. Police are also investigating a traffic accident that occurred around 1 o'clock this afternoon at the intersection of Yellow Pine Street and Logwood Road, involving a maroon 2001 Ford F-150 pickup truck that was heading south on Yellow Pine Street, which, when it collided with a silver 1994 Nissan Bluebird, which was traveling west on Logwood Road and failed to yield to the stop sign. Both drivers received injuries and were transported to the Rand Memorial Hospital. Both vehicles were extensively damaged. Police are investigating both matters. Stay with us. There's more news after this.